And if you have an unlimited thought, you will feel unlimited. And if you have a self-depreciating thought, you'll feel unworthy. And your brain instantaneously fires circuits that signal another part of the brain to release peptides or chemical messengers that signal hormonal centers. And when we get that arousal from the thought that we think, those thoughts sometimes weaken, the response weakens the physical body. So it turns out that the emotions that are created from the thoughts are the signaling mechanisms of the body. Thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. So it turns out that the thoughts based in the stress hormones, based in survival, those are the thoughts that begin to push the genetic buttons that create disease. In other words, a person wakes up in the morning, and the brain is a record of the past. The first thing they do when they wake up in the morning is they start thinking about their problems. And those problems are memories that are etched in the brain that are connected to certain people, certain objects, certain things at certain times and places. So if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, the moment you think about your problems, you're thinking in the past, right?
Mm-hmm. Did you ever notice that the best results in your life always come when you are relaxed and when you trust? Even the things you thought you couldn't do, now somehow you can do. But if you are aware enough, you will clearly see that this is only possible when you are in the state of peace and relaxation. And this is the perfect state to create. Dr. Joe Dispenza always says that your personality creates your personal reality. If we imagine the universe as a mirror, it reflects your inner self. You project your thoughts and feelings outside in the place you call your reality. Our studies have uncovered something truly intriguing, the impact our thoughts can have on our health. You might be wondering if it's really possible for our thoughts to make us both sick and well. Surprisingly, the answer is yes. This concept delves into the fascinating connection between our mental state and our physical well-being. To understand this, let's explore further. Imagine this. A significant number of people, around 75% to 90%, seek medical help because they're struggling with psychological or emotional stress. It's like these internal struggles can show up as physical health issues. In fact, it's like their bodies are telling them, hey, something's not right here. This link between our thoughts and our bodies is pretty interesting, don't you think? And here's the twist. It's not just the thoughts themselves. It's also how we handle our emotions and relationships. Imagine being in a bad job or a tough relationship and somehow feeling like you need them to feel something. It's almost like we latch onto these situations because they're familiar, even if they're not good for us. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. When scientists look closely, they find that when people get caught up in negative emotions, it actually affects their brains. It's like our brains get stuck in a loop of not-so-happy thoughts, and that can mess things up. But there's more to this story. As Joe Dispenza often notices, sometimes people start acting like they've had a really tough life, even if it's not true. They sort of make up stories of misery to justify not changing. It's like they're afraid of stepping out of their comfort zone, so they cling to their stories. They're like, well, I can't change because of this terrible past I had. But guess what? You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect before you start feeling good about yourself. You don't need a pile of money or a perfect partner to feel successful or loved. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating. Joe Dispenza determined that around 95% of who we are is kind of programmed into us by the time we're 35. It's like we've been collecting habits and patterns and they're running the show without us even realizing it. This hit me hard when I turned 30. I realized that a lot of my behaviors might not be as me as I thought. It's almost like we have a default setting that's driving our actions. So habits, they're interesting too. Habits are like the autopilot of our lives. They're those recurring behaviors that we do without even thinking about them. Brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, and checking your phone as soon as you wake up. These are all examples of habits. They're like shortcuts our brain takes to save energy and effort. Now, habits aren't inherently good or bad. They're just patterns of behavior that have been ingrained in us through repetition. Some habits serve us really well, making our lives smoother and more efficient. For instance, imagine if every morning you had to consciously think about how to put on your clothes or which shoe to tie first. Habits free up our mental space for more important decisions. But here's the thing. Habits can also become a bit sneaky. Sometimes we develop habits that might not be so helpful. It could be things like procrastinating, snacking when we're not hungry, or even negative self-talk. These habits often form without us even realizing it, and before we know it, they're influencing our actions and emotions. Habits are like well-worn paths in our brains. The more we repeat a behavior, the stronger that neural pathway becomes. It's like walking through a field of grass over and over again. Eventually, a clear trail forms, and the more we use that trail, the easier it is to follow, which is why habits can feel automatic. Now, changing habits can be a bit of a challenge. Remember, those neural pathways are like deep ruts, and trying to switch to a new path can feel like walking through thick undergrowth. It requires effort, awareness, and persistence. But the good news is that it's absolutely possible to change habits. The first step is becoming aware of your habits. Sometimes we do things so automatically that we don't even notice we're doing them. Take a moment to observe your behaviors, both the ones that serve you well and the ones that don't. Once you've identified a habit you want to change, it's time to replace it with a new behavior. Creating a new habit involves repetition. You need to consciously choose to do the new behavior again and again until it becomes the new default. It might feel strange and uncomfortable at first, but with time and practice, it'll become more familiar. And here's a cool trick. Piggyback your new habit onto an existing one. Let's say you want to start stretching every morning. You could attach it to the habit of brushing your teeth. So after you brush your teeth, you do a quick stretch routine. Over time, your brain will associate these two actions, and it'll be easier to remember to stretch. Remember, patience is key when it comes to changing habits. It's like learning a new skill. You don't become a pro overnight. Celebrate small victories along the way, and don't be too hard on yourself if you slip up. Changing habits takes time, and it's okay to have setbacks. In the end, habits play a huge role in shaping our lives. They're like the building blocks of our daily routines. By being mindful of our habits and actively working to change the ones that don't serve us, we can create a positive ripple effect in our lives. So, whether it's saying goodbye to that afternoon sugary snack or incorporating daily exercise, remember that you have the power to shape your habits and, in turn, shape your future. They're like the automatic things we do without really thinking about them. Some are great, like riding a bike or speaking a language. But some habits can be really not so great, like complaining all the time or feeling sorry for ourselves. And guess what? We get really good at the things we practice a lot, even the bad stuff. So changing these habits can be tough because they're so ingrained in us. But, and here's the exciting part, changing is possible. Think of it as rewriting your story. It's like you're breaking out of the old, comfortable version of yourself and creating a new and improved you. The cool thing is that it doesn't take forever. Just about 7 days of consistent effort can bring about some pretty amazing changes. Imagine that. In just a week, you could start seeing a transformed you. Here's a simple experiment for you to try. Imagine you're Dr. Joe, always researching and coming up with new ideas about humans and the universe. Now imagine there are beliefs in your head that you're kind of scared to talk about. What would they be? It's like a little thought experiment to get you thinking. So, there you have it, the fascinating link between our thoughts, habits, and how we can change them. It's like we have this hidden potential within us, waiting to be unlocked. The journey might not always be smooth, but it's worth it. After all, transformation is like rewriting the story of who you are. And who doesn't love a good story with a happy ending?
Thank you.